Welcome. This is the Midlife Rising podcast. It's Jen here, and today we're going to be talking about the midlife midsection, something that most women complain about when they hit their 40s. But we're not going to tell you about the latest diet or how much protein to eat or what exercise program to get on. We're going to tell you why it appeared in the first place. Because when you understand and change the subconscious beliefs that are driving the belly fat in the first place, you will naturally begin to make the changes necessary to rebalance your body. And the weight, believe it or not, will fall off without you even trying. Today, I'm going to interview Cher about the real cause of midlife weight gain. You're a woman over 40 who spent your life being the one who holds it all together. But now your body's changing and your soul is done pretending everything is fine. Welcome to Midlife Rising. We're your hosts, Sherry and Jen, twin sisters and modern medicine women, here to help you rewire your stress response, balance your hormones, and reclaim your feminine power. Every episode is a rebellion against the rules you never agreed to and a return to yourself. Join us where midlife isn't a crisis, it's a catalyst. Welcome back to the Midlife Rising podcast, and welcome if you're new around here. We have a great topic for you today, and one that I think is going to be pretty unique. Weight loss. Haha, right? No, weight loss is not unique. But what we're going to share about the root cause of weight gain, specifically in midlife, is going to be. So, Cher, let's start with what most women think is happening when they gain weight in midlife.
Well, I think that they're told, and so they believe it by doctors and I don't know, all kinds of sources out there that tell them that this is just what happens when you hit your 40s. It's natural to gain weight around the belly. And it's a drop in estrogen and there's no way around it. And so you just got to live with it. And I think people just start to believe that after a while when you're told often enough. And you see, most of the women in my life have picked up a little bit of weight around the midsection in their 40s and 50s. And so when you look around and see that everyone else has the same problem, then you start to think it's normal. We normalize things because we see it everywhere, but it's actually just common. It doesn't have to be that way.
And it is so true. Before I hit my 40s, I completely expected that that's going to happen. I'm going to get fatter around the middle just because that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So what do they normally try to do about it?
Well, I think they try to do everything that worked for them in the past. So they try to do what worked in their 20s. They keep using the same exercise routines, the whatever diet that they were, whatever sort of lifestyle they were living, whatever diet they were following, or the way that they were eating. It might not have even been a diet specifically. They try to keep doing that. Or maybe they try the latest fad, like the latest, whatever people are talking about, the new trend as to how to lose weight, and it doesn't work.
No, I know lots of women who they try the latest midlife diet. Like there's tons of information out there about the best diet to reduce the belly fat and the best exercises to reduce the belly fat of midlife. There's tons of that. And I have friends who've been trying to do that. It's totally it's not necessarily, I'm not the expert here, but I don't think it's necessarily what they did in their 20s, although the approach is the same as your 20s. And I did this too. It was like, I'm going to diet and I'm going to exercise and I'm going to diet harder and I'm just going to exercise harder. And that's going to make it go away. Or that's going to fight it off. I am not going to get it to begin with. That was my thinking.
And then you lost weight in a completely different way, right? And so did I.
It was weird. Like for me, I struggled with 15 pounds extra for years. Sometimes it got a little higher, sometimes a little lower. And I was never happy with my weight, always struggling. And then I made some accidental changes when I was 40. And the first was I started adding good things to my diet instead of trying to focus on taking away.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the physical aspect. Like, so I started feeling good. Like I'd be like, okay, I had this great day. Now I am going to have a little piece of chocolate for my dinner or whatever. So because it was like, it was just a different approach to my eating. But the more important thing that happened was I was going to a lot of different alternative therapies and energy healing kind of things. And I uncovered some subconscious beliefs that I had around my body and my weight. And when I released those, it fell off without me trying. Like I was losing sizes. Like my entire wardrobe didn't fit me anymore. So I lost more than the extra 15 that I was carrying around. I lost like 25 at 40 too.
Yeah. And the same thing, I'm not going to get into my story, but I lost weight at 50 and dropped like 2 sizes, like lower than when I was 16.
Me too. I weigh less than I did in high school.
So we could go down a rabbit hole on our own stories.
Yeah, I know. So, okay. So I have another question for you, Cher. So let's go back to the body part. What is actually going on in the body that contributes to this belly weight? Hormonally, physiologically, let's do that part first.
So low estrogen, for one thing, we know that the ovaries lower their production of estrogen beginning sometimes in your late 30s, early 40s. And that is actually linked to lower reactivity of insulin. So insulin is not as effective. It's not as reactive when your estrogen lowers.
So what does that mean in your body?
Yeah, so it's actually almost like it's not diabetes, although it can lead to that, but it's like that effect. Your insulin is what it helps to manage your blood sugar. So if your insulin isn't as reactive, your blood sugar is going to go on a roller coaster. And it's all, your body is constantly trying to balance your blood sugar. It's one thing that it's trying to balance all the time. And if it can't do that, then some of that blood sugar that's circulating is going to turn into fat storage.
So let me just get this right. So my understanding is that like when you have a blood sugar spike, like let's say after you've eaten a bunch of sugar, then insulin kicks in to try to reduce it. Does it also kick in when your blood sugar is too low and helps to raise it, or is that something else?
No, that's cortisol.
Oh, okay. So before we get to that then, so when insulin is not as sensitive, then you're going to get bigger blood sugar spikes than you used to, which is probably why a lot of people get more sensitive to caffeine as they get older.
Yeah, because caffeine also messes with your blood sugar.
Okay. And then that extra, if your blood sugar is high, then that ends up getting stored as extra fat cells.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now tell me about this cortisol part.
So there's 2 things about cortisol. So going back to what I said earlier, cortisol, when your blood sugar is at a low, cortisol kicks in to raise it.
I never knew that.
You didn't?
Not until you told me a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. That's one of its jobs is to manage blood sugar, to help. It works with insulin. The 3 work together. Glucose, which is your blood sugar, insulin, and cortisol. There's so many other factors. I'm kind of simplifying this. But if your blood sugar is low and you don't eat, cortisol will kick in. If you do eat, then the cortisol is not necessary. But if you don't, then cortisol is going to kick in and raise your blood sugar. And what happens when you're on this roller coaster is that insulin and cortisol overshoot. So you end up on a roller coaster instead of like it should look like you're like it's never going to be a straight line, but it should look like, ripples if you're looking at a graph, like small little ripples in the water. But if you have insulin and cortisol and they're trying to manage like bigger spikes, then you're just going to end up on this continuous like waves and troughs. And that's what makes you feel it's responsible for so much of your energy. Like you feel the trough if you don't eat. Like that's why you feel sugar cravings in the afternoon, because you're on a low. And then your body is telling you, go get me some sugar fast, because we are way down at the bottom of this trough and we need some sugar. But if you're on a ripple kind of effect of blood sugar, then you're not going to feel that. So if you're feeling cravings, your blood sugar is probably off. And so your cortisol is going to kick in if you don't eat. And that's going to pull glucose from your cells and turn it into what you need in your blood.
So what it sounds like then is that when you get on the little roller coaster, because they both are overshooting, it actually makes it worse. You get on a bigger roller coaster. So it's like a vicious circle.
It can. Yeah. And what can happen, especially if you start your day off with a whole bunch of carbs, like start your day with a donut, and you're going to feel like sugar cravings all day long. You're never going to feel like you're going to feel hungry an hour after you eat that donut, because your body's just on this. It's trying to balance back out. You eat like a high protein, high fat breakfast, and that fat is going to satiate you and keep your blood sugar more balanced.
I noticed such a difference when I cut out carbs at breakfast, and I didn't switch to bacon and eggs. I switched to smoothies with avocado instead of banana.
Yeah.
There's still a bit of fruit in my smoothie, but it's avocado instead of banana, because bananas, for whatever, everybody says bananas are low glycemic index or whatever. I get sugar rushes from bananas.
Most people do.
So yeah, then there's like a lot of misinformation out there. Because when I was running marathons, that's what they told me to eat, was have a banana before I ran. And that every time I did that, I hit the wall.
Yep.
That was when I had the sugar low in the middle of our run, and we were 12 kilometers from home. So the biggest, like a very big change for me happened when I cut out carbs and sugar at breakfast and started eating like smoothies and without the bananas, without a lot of fruit, more vegetables,
more fat.
So anything else in the body before I have my next question?
Yeah. So the other thing that contributes is that muscle mass contributes here. So if you're working out consistently, then this isn't going to apply to you. But if you're not, and you haven't been, your muscles are either building or they are atrophying. And so if you're not working your muscles, then they are diminishing, and it's your muscles that keep your metabolism moving. So if your muscle mass is deteriorating, then your metabolism is going to slow, and then you're going to gain weight. And that's not just that will happen in your 20s and 30s as well. It just so happens that, when you hit your 40s, you've suddenly not been doing really consistent muscle building workouts in your 30s. And so then you hit your 40s and suddenly you're like, oh, this is actually taking a toll.
Yeah, I noticed it. So back to me again. I always have an example for these things. So I practiced a very strong Ashtanga yoga for 10 years, basically from 2013 to 2023. And then, and I always thought that was going to be enough, because I was strong. But now I've gone back to weights, and I'm trying to balance my yoga and my weights now. And I have noticed I cannot lift what I used to be able to lift. And now I'm annoyed with myself because I could have retained that muscle mass. So now I'm rebuilding it. But I can see how easily that can happen. Like I was still doing, so it wasn't like I was inactive. I was still walking. I was still running here and there. And my muscles still declined.
It's not that you can't get them back, but you have to work. Like it's something that you have to keep working at. Or if you've allowed them to deteriorate, you need to work to get them back. And you can, it's not that hard. It's not as hard as people say.
So why is muscle mass related to belly fat?
It's not not specifically. It's more so cortisol high cortisol encourages fat storage, particularly around the middle. So it's more the cortisol insulin problem. Decreased muscle mass is going to encourage weight gain in general, but because of that cortisol and insulin problem, then you're going to see it more around the middle.
Yes, I did start to see it around the middle, but the lost muscle mass just kind of made me a little bit untoned all over. Like I was sort of flabby.
Mm-hmm.
You've said, we've talked about it before, that weight isn't just about you've touched on, by talking about cortisol,
Mm-hmm.
you've touched on one of the underlying factors of why we gain weight in midlife. Let's talk more about that. So I talk about stress all the time. I know what it does to our bodies. Maybe you can explain how this why is this cortisol so high in the first place?
Yeah, because of the busyness. It's not just being busy. I should clarify, and you and I haven't really talked about this or distinguished. It's not just having a busy lifestyle that causes this. It's when you feel so busy that you feel pressure. It's the pressure that's associated with the busyness. It's the stress. That's causing your body to think that it's in fight or flight. Whenever you feel that anxiety increasing or that pressure increasing, then your body thinks, oh, there's something going on. There's a threat out there. And we're going to release cortisol and adrenaline so that we're prepared to do whatever is required to face this threat, whether it's fight or flight
Or fawn.
or freeze or fawn. So that stress hormone, there's adrenaline and there's cortisol. And as I said before, cortisol plays a huge role in managing the blood sugar balance. And if cortisol is already out of whack because it's also being released whenever you're feeling pressure, then it's going up and down all day long. So you can end up with an overabundance of cortisol in your body that it doesn't know what to do with.
Well, the adrenals can overshoot too. The adrenal glands that produce and release the cortisol into your system can overshoot. So then you also end up with more. And then if you're eating lots of sugar, then you have more cortisol for that reason too. And when your insulin isn't working as well, then you have more cortisol in your system. And all of this comes to a head in midlife.
Yeah, exactly. It's a vicious cycle. They're all sort of working against each other and creating this sort of perfect storm of you hit midlife and you're like, oh, body doesn't know what to do with all of this.
So we feel not only the belly fat, but all the symptoms, all the other stuff that happens because we're so stressed out. And I want to qualify this too, because you make a really good point when you talk about the difference between busyness and the stress, because you can be busy. Like I have a friend who's really busy, but she's not stressed out. And she's an extrovert. So actually all the extra activities and social stuff doesn't stress her out. And a lot of people don't realize they're this stressed out because we've normalized stress so much. Like everybody's stressed out. So we just think that it's okay, without realizing that all this pressure we put on ourselves and the feeling of the pressure is the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can even be not that busy. Like, for example, I have worked towards this life that is not that busy. And this past week, I don't know, I'm just feeling the pressure. We want to launch our podcast soon, and we've just launched a program. We have all this stuff going on. And so I kind of unwittingly put this extra pressure on myself. And so now, even though I'm still working the same hours a day, I'm doing the same, it's different work, but it's the same work, like the same stuff. I'm feeling all this pressure, and I feel that I'm getting headaches. My eyes are hurting at the end of the day because I'm working from this state of anxiety, and I can feel it.
Yeah.
And that's different.
Yeah. Your body's in fight or flight just by sitting at your desk. And your body, your adrenal glands, don't know the difference between I've got to get this thing done and there's a lion standing in front of me. Like it doesn't know that there's a difference between those two. Like it doesn't know that one is life-threatening and one isn't. It just knows, oh, my body is ramping up. We need to get the cortisol going because we need to either fight or flee or fawn or freeze.
And then it also doesn't know that you're not facing starvation when you're hungry.
Yes. Yeah. And well, that's another thing actually that I haven't mentioned. Cortisol, if your body thinks there's a threat, cortisol will actually tell your body to hold on to weight if it thinks that there's some sort of environmental threat. So this is why women who cut calories, like they go on a really low calorie diet and they can't lose weight. So they're eating like 800 calories a day and they're not losing weight. That's because they've just increased their cortisol because their body thinks that they're starving. There's a threat externally, there's a famine or there's a drought or something. And so then it tells your body to hold on to weight just in case something's going to happen.
I remember hearing that when I used to diet, that exact thing. Like if you reduce your calories too much, then your body is not going to lose weight. And they used to talk about how it's because your metabolism then slows down.
Well, and it does a little bit if you're not working out, but it's more the cortisol. Your body thinks there's a threat.
That's different.
It also, you know what else is interesting? And this doesn't really even have anything to do with midlife. Your body will do that if it doesn't get the right nutrients. If you go and eat McDonald's every day, you're getting enough food. You're definitely getting enough calories if you're eating McDonald's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but you will gain weight because your body isn't getting any nutrients. So your body thinks, oh my gosh, I'm starving. I'm not getting nutrients. So it will then also tell your system, we got to hold on to some weight here because there's a famine out there. I'm not getting enough nutrients.
So even if you were eating 800 calories a day of McDonald's food or of whatever, some kind of non-nutritional value food, your body's, even if it's only 800 calories, your body's still going to gain weight.
Well, it's not that you're going to gain weight. Your body's going to hold on to weight. I had a colleague once who was on Weight Watchers. And Weight Watchers is great in many ways. It causes you to really think about what you're eating because you get more like points or value, or like it's easier to eat the lower point foods, which are the healthy foods. But she was always going out and getting McDonald's and she would just cut out, like those were like, you can only eat so much of that because it's high in points according to the Weight Watcher diet. So you can't eat too much of it if you're going to stay within your points. And I just thought, but that's not actually, like, that's not going to help you lose weight because your body is going to think that you're not getting any nutrients. So food is not equal just because it has the same caloric value. And it can trigger cortisol if your body thinks that it's not getting the right nutrients. It thinks it's starving.
We know that there's something that's deeper. What are these subconscious patterns that are leading to the stress in the first place?
You know the answer to that. We've talked about it before. It's the pressure that we feel to perform. It's perfectionism. You talk about it because you're the expert on this stuff.
Yeah, briefly, I talk about subconscious patterns are behavioral patterns that we don't realize we're doing because most of our behavior is automatic. And some examples of these patterns are people pleasing, perfectionism, firefighting, overthinking, stuff like that. That people pleasing and perfectionism are the biggest ones that keep us overly busy because we say yes to too many things. We perfect too many things. So it doesn't mean like there are certain things that warrant perfectionism, that warrant high standards, but there are other things that don't. The kids' party invite, for example, doesn't have to be printed out in a perfect Evite or laminated and handed out to the children. So when we are perfecting everything, that's when we get so busy and then we feel all this pressure to perform, and because we feel less valuable if we're not actually living up to our own arbitrary standards. So those are the subconscious patterns that cause the stress. And what I wanted to talk about next was then what is leading to those. And that is most often patriarchal conditioning and our own childhood coping mechanisms that helped us stay safe. So tell me more about that, Cher.
Well, and I actually have a great example of that because we just hosted my husband's family for a barbecue on Saturday. And all week I've been thinking about the barbecue.
I know where this is going.
Yeah, like some people can just host a barbecue and it's no big deal. For me, the house has to be perfect and I've got to come up with a perfect menu. And I'm also thinking about like, okay, what's going to be easy on the day? So, and what can I prepare ahead of time? And then it comes down to the day and I'm rushing around, checking all the bathrooms and making sure the towels are changed and vacuuming and cleaning and making food and doing all of these things. And granted, this time I was much, much better because I was very aware of what was happening, thanks to you. But most of the time, like in previous years, like that, I was putting all that pressure on myself. Nobody would know if I changed the bathroom towel or not.
Yeah.
That's me and my standards, my perfectionism. I have to host the perfect party. My house has to look perfect. The food has to taste perfect. That's my own pressure. And that, for me, that comes from, I think, a few different things. I mean, part of it is, what does everybody else think of me? What is everybody going to think of my house?
Guaranteed, Cher, there are millions of women who resonate with that story. I certainly do. And yeah, for me, I'm afraid people are going to judge me. Like what if there's toothpaste in the sink? That makes me look like a bad
homemaker,
house manager, homemaker, whatever. Like that's still ingrained in me from somewhere.
Yeah. And we can look and say, okay, well, that got passed down from mom because mom was exactly the same way. And
dad, actually.
Yeah. Also dad. That's true.
On that one. Usually our stuff comes from mom, but on this one, dad was also like really particular when we were having company.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think it's both of those things. Like it's partly, what does everybody else think of me? So am I going to be judged? But then, and I think going deeper, like, what am I going to be judged on? Like, am I going to be judged as a not great homemaker, or I don't know, whatever they call it these days, like someone who takes care of our home, as a poor cook, as whatever. But I think that comes from this patriarchal idea that women are supposed to be good at these things, that we're supposed to be like, that's our role.
Yes.
So as much as we say, roles are blurring and men can wash the dishes and women can cut the lawn, which I do, by the way, I also cut the lawn, that internal conditioning is still there, that I'm supposed to be the one who's good at these things. And I'm the one who's managing the project of the party. And so it's going to look bad on me. Mike doesn't care. And he's not the one who's running around worrying about it.
No, it never is. I bet you that also reflects on you differently as a childless woman.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have kids, so I can explain away my mess because I've got kids. They're like, I can never keep this place clean because I've got now 7-year-old. I can never keep my car clean. I can't because of the kids. So the kids are messier and I don't have time because I'm managing the kids. So I have an excuse.
Yes. You are the first.
Even though internally, I don't feel like I have an excuse. Doesn't matter.
You're so right. I actually talk about this on my childless podcast and my group for women who are childless, but I've never actually heard a mom say that. So that's really interesting because I do feel like that. I'm like, I don't have an excuse. Like my house has to be perfect because I supposedly have all this time to keep it that way. Or I don't have the kids to mess it up. So it should just always be like that. And yet I'm apparently not a very neat person because it's always messy. Well, I also have a dog and I have a husband who uses a wheelchair. So yeah, I still won't allow those to be my excuse. But when you use a wheelchair, you are basically coming into the house and wearing your shoes all over the house or your snowy, muddy boots, whatever season it is. So, there's perpetually dirt or snow or salt from the roads or whatever all over our floor. And yet I still am has to be clean.
So patriarchy keeps us stressed and busy because there's all this pressure. And some of the other things that I talk about from that standpoint is patriarchy tells women that we're second best. So we have to prove our value. So we stay really busy and we get stressed. We probably, you might not realize it if you're feeling this, or you might not even realize you're feeling this, but you are stressed when you don't feel like you are worthy enough. That can stress you out. So it's not just, like we said before, the busyness of trying to get the long to-do list done and trying to get everything done, because that's stressful if we're pressuring ourselves to get everything done. Why we're trying to get everything done in the first place is that we don't feel like we deserve whatever, the title or the role, the title at home. Like, I'm not a good wife, or I'm not a good home manager. I'm not good at my job. I don't deserve this title. So we don't feel worthy of it. So we get busier. And that's stressful when we don't feel worthy of it, or we're afraid of criticism, or we feel like we're not making it in a man's world, because the business world, whether you like it or not, is still a man's world. It was still created by men and it still is, no matter how many women are in it. So all those things are things that cause us the stress. But the other thing that patriarchy does is it wires us to ignore our bodies. So walk us through how it tells us to override exhaustion, keep saying yes. It's along the same lines, but I just want to dig a little deeper into that.
Yeah. So from the time we are little kids, we are wired to ignore messages from our body.
Girls in particular, or all children?
I think all children. It shows up in a little bit of a different way, but let me explain what I mean.
Okay.
When you're a little kid and you're sitting at the dinner table and you say, I'm full, I can't eat anymore. And then comes either eat your dinner and you won't get dessert. So then you eat your dinner even though you're full because you want dessert. Or you get the guilt, which is you should be grateful, eat your dinner because there's starving children all over Africa or America. There's language and that like conditioning from the time that we are little kids that means ignore your full body, your fullness, and eat more. Even though you're full, I want you to finish your plate. And so we ignore and we eat until we are more full.
Yeah.
And then in school, I was literally just talking about this on another podcast. And you get to school and you have to raise your hand if you have to pee.
Or try to wait till recess.
Or you're told, recess is in 10 minutes. So you can wait. And so then you ignore another body signal.
Mm-hmm.
And this happens throughout our lives. We begin in childhood to stop trusting how our bodies feel and going with whatever the external is telling us to do. And then we hit adulthood and it's like, oh no, I just have to finish this one thing before I go and eat or before I go to the washroom or before I rest or before I, whatever your body is asking for. It's no, I've got to get this thing done first, or it's this before I can take care of my body. So your body's always last.
And I need to work. So I'm going to go to work sick.
Mm-hmm.
I have period pain and I'm just going to pop a bunch of Tylenol or Midol or something and go to work anyway and suffer through it. We're taught that too. Like many people, not everybody, because I know people who do rest when they're in pain or sick or whatever. But there's so much judgment around that if you take the time off.
Yeah. And the period pain is another one that starts in high school, usually when you want to sit out of gym because you don't feel good. You feel uncomfortable in your gym clothes and you don't want to be running around. And the gym teacher rolls their eyes at you and doesn't understand and says, whatever, get your clothes on and get going. So ignore how you're feeling when you're actually like our bodies are actually supposed to rest when we're getting our periods. You have lower energy.
Yep.
Your body's going through something.
I know. It was amazing when I started to actually pay attention to that when I was practicing Ashtanga. And we'd practice 6 days a week. We took a rest day on Saturday. Plus, we rested when the moon was full or new. And women rested when they were menstruating.
Yeah.
And man, my cycles became very regular. And in line with the moon.
Interesting.
So, okay. So on that note, when you said we ignore our body's signals, I think this is the next step is that then when we try to actually start to diet and get on a healthy path again, patriarchy also keeps us from that. And I was thinking about that story you told about a client anonymously to me recently. Can you tell that story? You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah. I have a few where this has come up, but this one in particular kind of stands out. And I know I've told you about her before. So this client came to me. She was really struggling with losing weight and tried especially the low calorie diet, tried different things to try to correct or to try to lose the weight. And she finally came to me, and in the first session, I usually do give them, I don't give people a whole plan to overhaul their nutrition or their life, their diet, everything. We start with 3 small commitments. And one of hers was to take this supplement that she already had in her cupboard and start taking it. And
just take the supplement.
Just take the supplement.
I hear it all the time too, Cher.
Yeah. And a couple of weeks later, she came back And I asked her how she made out on her commitments, and she said I didn't do any of them. And so then we started coaching. And long story short, what came out of that was that, we went through a process of what kept you from taking the supplement? Well, I was just busy. I didn't think of it. Well, what kept you so busy? Well, work is really busy. And then by the time I get home, I forget about it in the morning. I'm rushing off to work and whatever. Well, what causes that? And what causes that? And what causes that? Like, what specifically keeps you from doing all of those things? And what came out of that was, well, she's busy because she didn't feel like she could say no to the 5:00 meeting her boss is asking her for. And she didn't feel like she could say no to the client calls that were coming through after work hours. And well, lunchtime, normally she was working from home a few days a week. So I was like, what's happening on lunch? Well, I take the dog for a walk. And so that takes up my lunch hour. I was trying to create space and take the dog for a walk and get some exercise. But then it's the dog that's getting the attention. So at the end of the day, there was a fear underneath of that, which was, if I don't comply with my boss, if I don't serve the boss, the clients, the dog, maybe not the dog, but the boss and the clients, I'm going to lose my job. And I think there's a difference there between men and women. Not all, but I watched so many executives when I worked in the financial world. Male executives would walk out the door at 5:00 without a thing in their hands. Their wallet and their keys are in their pocket, and they would just shut off their computer and walk out the door. Yeah. And the women would still be there at 6:30. And these are midlife women. So they're not, picking up their kids at 5:00 from daycare. They're midlife women. They're the ones who are proving something. They're the ones who feel like they can't just stop their day at 5 and go home. Yeah. There's definitely men out there who work crazy hours as well. I'm not saying that there aren't. But there's this underlying belief, talking about subconscious beliefs, there's always a fear there. There's something that keeps you from taking the supplement that's already in your cupboard.
Which, bringing it back to the belly around the middle, is all of that then keeps us crazy busy and stressed, which leads to the weight gain. But it also keeps us from doing all the right things that we need to do to lose the weight.
The things that we know are going to benefit us. Most women know what's going to help them. Maybe not the fine tuning, but they generally know. I need to do some muscle building exercises. I want to eat more salads, more greens, more vegetables, more protein, more healthy fats. They know what they need to do, but they don't do it. And they can't figure out why.
Yep. I hear it all the time. So just coming around then, if we're told that the midlife weight gain is just about hormones and willpower, the nice thing about this actually is that it makes it not our fault. Because when I couldn't lose weight, I really felt like there was something wrong with me. Like I not something wrong with me, but like, why can't I get this right? Like, why can't I do this? I am weak. Like there's an internal criticism under there. So I hope that this gives our listeners a little bit of grace. Like this isn't you. It's not your fault.
I think there's shame there. Like I felt a lot of shame about my body.
Absolutely. Because it looks like you can't control yourself.
Okay, so just a sidebar for a moment, because I think we probably need to do a whole nother episode on this. There's a whole piece that we haven't even talked about, and that is the body image that the patriarchy has ingrained in and advertising and media, like the way that a woman is supposed to look. And that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, we talked about it in the gendered aging episode, but yes, we could talk for hours about that. So these like this culture, the systems that we're living under are rewarding self-abandonment is what it's doing. So what would you say, like, where does that leave us? What would you say to a woman then who's feeling all of this, who's frustrated with her body, maybe hasn't considered this, that the problem's actually not her, it's the system that she's trying to survive in? What would you say to her? What could she do?
Well, first of all, come work with us because none of the diets out there, like if you're only looking at a strictly physical answer, a diet and exercise, chances are that's either not going to work because you're not addressing the stress, which is going to cause your blood sugar to go all out of whack, and insulin and cortisol, as we talked about in the beginning. But you're also not going to, like you may not even take the supplement or cook yourself the nourishing food that you're supposed to on the diet. Something's always going to get in the way. And if you don't address that, which is the conditioning, the subconscious beliefs, and the stress, then no diet and exercise plan is going to work. So you need to start with the foundation, which is let's unravel what your beliefs are. And then the weight will drop off naturally.
Yeah, you almost don't even have to diet. And, we've touched on some of the beliefs on this episode and others, like some of these patriarchal beliefs that keep us hustling and all of that. But the important part, I think that we cover when we start working with the women that are in our groups and one-to-one is we work on their personal unique beliefs and conditioning because it's slightly different for everybody.
True.
Like how we internalize these societal subliminal messages is slightly different for everybody. So this is a start for you to start becoming aware of what might be under the surface. It's like an iceberg. There's so much under the surface.
Yeah. And all you can see is the tip, but there's all this other stuff.
Yeah. So let's just close this off then. I guess my last question, or maybe one more, is what's one small, maybe even radical act a woman could take now? Maybe not even to lose weight, but to just stop abandoning her body and come back to her own true self.
Yeah. So it's a practice. And this is the practice. You start listening to your body. So it always starts with noticing.
Yep.
Noticing, like observing yourself, noticing when you are hungry, when you are thirsty, when you have to pee, when something hurts. Those are all your body signaling to you that it needs something. When it's tired, I could go on and on. Notice when your body is actually feeling something and how you respond. That's the first step.
Yeah.
What's your first inkling? What's your first, are you ignoring it? Like notice when you have the urge to pee and you say, okay, hang on, just wait. I need to finish this one thing. Like you're saying that to your body. Just wait. Wait, and I'll give you what you need in a minute. And every time you do that, you're telling your body, what I have to do here is more important than what you have to do.
That's so true. And I love the way that you taught this to the women in our program the other day. And one of the things that came out was my eyes are tired. Because people don't think about all the little ways that our body is giving us a signal. And that was such a perfect example. Like my eyes are tired right now and I don't think about it. My eyes need a rest from this computer screen. I need to go for a walk. So, yeah, I think that's a great small way to end. And if you want to know the method that Sherry taught in our program the other day, you'll have to get in touch with us. So we will put some links in the show notes on how to get in touch with us. If you wanted to sum it all up, what does patriarchy have to do with midlife weight gain?
So the patriarchy has conditioned us in ways that cause us to gain weight and that keep us from doing the things that are going to help us bring our body back into balance.
So when everyone else is just talking about the best diet for midlife weight gain, there's so much more. I'm going to close there. If you want to know more, get in touch with us. Check the links in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Cher. I cannot believe that every time we have one of these conversations, I learn something from you, and you're my twin sister, and we talk all the time. So thank you for all of your wisdom. And to you, our listener, thank you so much. We will see you in the next episode.